Air India is holding a press conference right now. Let's go straight to that.
There is an Air India specific alternate mechanism chaired by our Home Minister, which is comprising Finance Minister, Minister Civil Aviation and Minister Commerce in Industry. We have a system of appointing professional advisors to support the process, which includes transaction advisor, legal advisor and asset valuer. The process has been carried out in a transparent manner with due regard to confidentiality of bidders. And this was a competitive process with competition maintained throughout the transaction process, and including the fact that we do not reveal actually the number of bidders in the offering so as to avoid collusive bidding. Important milestones in the transaction process, I would come to that. As you know, EOIs were expected by March 17, 2020. With outbreak of COVID, time extensions were allowed till December 14, 2020. Now, another important thing was, in place of the original bidding construct, which was an equity basis with a predetermined debt level in the company, the construct was revised to enterprise value. And as before, there was also a provision for certain identified current and non-current liabilities will be matched with current and non-current assets, with access to be taken out to AIAHL. AIAHL is another GOI SPV, Air India Asset Holding Company, where we are transferring some of the assets and liabilities. Non-core land and assets are not to be offered to the acquirer. So this will actually be taken over to the new company, to the Government of India, AIAHL. Interest of employees and retired employees have been taken care of. With the EV mode of bidding, which is the enterprise value mode of bidding, bidders got an opportunity to resize the balance sheet under a transparent value discovery process. Now, bidders would now bid on the total consideration for equity and debt as per that construct. We had a minimum cash consideration of 15% of quoted EV, and a maximum retained debt could be 85% of quoted EV. Now, at the RFP stage, the important milestones were RFP and confidential information memorandum and draft SPA were shared with qualified interested bidders in March 2021. Information shared in virtual data room for due diligence of QIBs. Meetings with management of company and site visits for due diligence facilitated. Over 200 queries asked, seeking clarifications and revisions to SPA. Queries responded and agreed form SPA. We call it agreed form SPA, that means share purchase agreement, which includes the terms and conditions of the sale. With bidders on 7th September 2021, and final agreed form SPA initiated by bidders and submitted along with bid on 15th September 2021. So the bid has come with an agreed form SPA, which means that we are not negotiating any terms and conditions after the bid. Once the bid was received, prior to that, the bidders have agreed to all the terms and conditions under which this bid will prevail. This is a standard process. Important milestones in the transaction process is also determination of reserve price. As per approved procedure, valuation exercise was undertaken. Transaction advisor carried out valuation of EV through business valuation methods. Asset valuer carried out valuation of EV through asset valuation methods. Valuation exercise carried out on methodology approved by the interministerial group. And IMG considered the valuation reports and recommended a reserve price for the transaction. The core group of secretaries on disinvestment approved the reserve price. Reserve price was set before opening the sealed financial bids. It's important that in our process we ensure that there is a complete independence between the bidding and the reserve price fixation. Security clearance applications of both bidders verified and ascertained that both were security cleared. Then transaction advisor and legal advisor certified that supporting documents submitted by the bidders were in order and both bidders were technically qualified for participation. The financial bids were opened by interministerial group in presence of bidders on 29 September 2021. Both bidders quoted well over the reserve price. IMG recommended accepting the H1 bid, which was agreed to by the CGT and recommended to ISM. ISM approved the price bid in their meeting on 4th October 2021. Bids received. These are the bid received. So the Tata Sons Private Limited, their SPV, Talace Private Limited, is the winning bidder at 18,000 crore. The second bidder was consortium led by Shri Ajay Singh. This is a consortium, not an individual sole bid. The transaction does not include non-core assets, including land and building, valued at 14,718 crore. These are not being part of the transaction. These are being transferred to Government of India's AIAHL. It includes Nariman Point, Air India headquarters here, some other buildings. There are subsidiaries where Air India has investments. These will be hived off. So Talace Private Limited, which is basically Tata Sons SPV, has emerged as a successful bidder for the sale of equity shareholding of GOI in Air India, in AIXL, which is a subsidiary of Air India as a part of this transaction, and 50% of Air India in AISATS, which is another joint venture of Air India, along with management control. Now, going forward from this, a letter of intent will be issued and SPA will be signed with successful bidder. Conditions precedent will be completed by long stop date. Financial statements on long stop date will be prepared and agreed with the successful bidder as per the share purchase agreement already agreed upon. And transaction is expected to close by the end of December 2021. Thank you very much. That completes my presentation, giving you the information. And now we are open to the question. My colleague Rajiv Bansal, Secretary Civil Aviation, is there as well to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now take questions. Okay, 1, 2, 6.
Sir, congratulations. This is Ruchi Bhatia from ET Now. I want to first begin by asking you on what worked for the Air India's disinvestment process, privatization process this time around, and when will you look at completely doing the handover as well, sir?
Actually, there were many things that we had bid criteria which were actually changed. In the initial, the first round, we were actually retaining 26% with us. So it was not 100% sale. The second was the construct was their equity value. The third, the debt was prefixed. Then the debt itself has, the current liabilities issues had not been really clarified on that because there is a lot of current assets and current liabilities gap. And then there were other conditions which were also, relating to merger and other things which were not really clear. So I think these points have been then subsequently taken care of while we did the construct. And I think the enterprise value construct was important in this case because the Air India had very excessive debt, which we are all aware that this debt is not really a debt for which the underlying assets are there. This debt has come about because of, continuous losses which the Air India has, borne. I mean, the losses are in excess of 70,000 crore. And they have actually been funded through this debt, which has been government guaranteed. So because of this excess debt, there was no scope for, it had to be hived off. But how much of the amount to be hived off was to be determined through the market in this EB process rather than we taking any a priori view of the debt.
Okay, 106. Ruchi will come back to you later.
As I said, by December 2021, we want to close the transaction, and the closing would actually mean, the date of closing would mean that we will get the consideration and they will get the shares.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I have two questions here. First question is 29,464 crore rupees. Hello, can you hear me? This is Anu Sharma from CMC TV 18. My first question is 29,464 crore rupees was transferred from Air India's debt to the SPV. Now the debt has risen to over 40,000 crore, nearly 42,000 crore. This quote has around 15,000 crore for the debt part. So what happens to the remaining debt, which is close to around 27,000 crore rupees? Will it go to the SPV? Who will pay for it? The other part is Tatas currently have two airlines in India, Vistara and AirAsia India. How will that work for Tatas once Air India and Air India Express goes to them? Thank you.
Okay, let me come to the debt position. See, the debt as on March 31, 2021 is 44,781 crore in the books of AI. And there is a debt also on the books of AI XL. Combined debt of AI and XL as on March 31, 2021 is 46,239 crore. And then, I would rather, instead of this breakdown, I'll give you the final figures. The total debt as on August 31, 2021 will be 61,562 crores. 61,562 crore. 61,562 crore as on August 31. No, we will come to that. Let me give in a simpler way. 61,560 crore. Out of that, the debt which will be taken over by the successful bidder will be 15,300 crore. As you said, that 18,000 crore is the bid, of which 15% consideration will be cash and 85% will be debt. So 15,300 crore will be taken off. So debt position after debt taken over by the successful bidder will remain 46,262 crores. That is the debt which is remaining. 46,262 crore. This is going to be going to the AI AHL. 46,262 crore. Yes, the airlines will get the debt of 15,300 crore. Because that is the construct. You quote the debt you are going to take and the rest will be hived off. Now, I would like to highlight here an important point. What is it that the government has put in Air India since 2009 and 10? The government has put in 54,584 crore as cash support. Since 2009-10, I am telling, not prior to that. And 55,692 crore as guarantee support. So, in total, government support since 2009-10 has been 1,10,276 crore. And largely, if you say, because if you have year after year after year after losses, so all these losses have actually been funded, some part from the equity, which was a minor part, largely through the government guaranteed debt. So therefore, actually, if you look at it, that there are no underlying assets as such, because this is all loss which has been funded through the debt which is guaranteed by the government. So the taxpayers have actually, put in 1,10,276 crore in Air India since 2009 and 10. 1,10,276 crore.
Okay, 121. Shishir.
Yes, I think that is up to them. So far as the bid is concerned, we will hand over, whenever the consideration is paid. Of course, the construct, the share purchase agreement, etc., allows them to go ahead with the mergers and other things. I mean, there is no restriction as such. The restriction is subject to, during the time they will maintain in the equity lock-in period. They have to maintain 51%. That means the ownership. The ownership has to be there with the bidder who has got it.
Sir, I have two questions. Sir, one is, when you talk about 18,000 crore rupees of the bid, and out of that 15,300 crore is the debt and remaining in the cash. So what is the actual amount the government is going to get after this transaction is completed? This is number one. And number two is, when you talked about that they are free to go for merger and acquisition, so will this process also go to the CCI so that there should not be any kind of monopoly or any kind of dominance in the market?
I'll answer your later part first. Every strategic sale is to have the CCI approval. That is a regulatory approval is required, so that will have to be taken. So therefore, when I said that between signing and closing, there is a period in which all these approvals have to be taken. There are also third-party approvals. There are lenders. There are many things which need to go between this time. There are condition precedent. There are certain conditions which company has to satisfy. There are certain conditions which the bidder has to satisfy. And there are certain conditions which the government has to satisfy. And on satisfaction of these conditions, only closing can take place. The other part, as you mentioned, was regarding, yes, I mean, basically in this case, the construct is that you have certain liabilities where, for example, I said that there is a government guarantee, which means that basically if the loan is not paid back by the Air India, then government has to pay back. So it is as good as the government liability. Now, to that extent the liabilities remain in the Air India, that is the part of bidder. And to that extent the liabilities go out, and I mentioned it, that there will be at least debt liability of 46,000 which are going away. No, government gets 18,000 basically in this, because whether it is debt or a cash, I mean, there is an equity consideration of 15% and the debt consideration of this. This is the consideration. Cash will be 2,700 crore, and the remaining, the debt will be taken over. So therefore, that kind of debt, government would not have to take over. So it is as good as government getting money. 46,260 crore will the debt that will remain, which the government has to take over in the AIAHL. Now just to further make it clear, 46,262 crores will be the debt which will be taken over to AIAHL. Then 14,718 crore will be the assets which will be taken over by AIAHL. So to that extent, we are getting liability of 46,262 and a debt of, and then assets of 14,718. And 2,700 crore we have got the cash equity. So net impact will be 845 crore. That is one part. The second part will be
well, with the Tatas taking over the reins of Air India once again after 8 years, as has been just announced by the government there, life has come full circle for one of India's largest business conglomerate. Let's take a look at the Maharaja's journey from 1932 under Tatas since today.
An air of nostalgia in India. Air India. In 1932, Air India, then known as Tata Air Services, took its first flight. This iconic first flight was piloted by none other than Jahangir Ratanji Dadabhai Tata himself. An aviator and businessman, he founded the airline with 2 lakh rupees. Sir Dorabji Tata, the then chairman of Tata Sons, gave this money to JRD rather reluctantly. But JRD did not disappoint. He held his passion venture close to his heart and transformed it into a full-fledged business, growing it from a night airmail service to a leading commercial carrier. Eventually, it got known as Air India and Air India International. 1946, the aviation division of Tata Sons was listed as Air India. 1948, Air India International took off with flights to Europe. The international service was amongst the first public-private partnerships in India. The government held 49% stake, the Tatas 25%, and the public owned the rest. In 1953, Air India was nationalized. It was only in 2001 that the NDA government first attempted to divest the airline, rather unsuccessfully. The privatization plans were shelved in the year 2004 as the UPA-1 government took over. It was only in 2017 Air India privatization plans received an approval from the centre after mounting debt of over 50,000 crore rupees for the national carrier. In the year 2018, despite an expression of interest of 76% stake sale in Air India, no bids were received for the financially ailing airline. It was only in 2020, the year of the COVID pandemic, that the government listed Air India again for divestment, offering 100% stake sale this time around. Tata Group was amongst the multiple entries that put an initial expression of interest, or EOI, to buy the Maharaja. And in 2021, Tata Sons won the final bid for acquiring Air India. A landmark moment in Indian economic history and the start of the end of nationalization of the airline. The crown jewel of aviation has returned home to the Tatas full circle. In New Delhi, Chaiti Narula, India Today.